Hello, everybody. How are you? I am Dr. Alicia with Coaching with Dr. Alicia, and we are here today for our book club meeting. And the name of our book is How to Be an Adult in Relationships. We've been reading this book just about every Sunday, and today we're going to finish up chapter 1. I can't believe we are just now on chapter 1, finishing chapter 1. And then I'm going to take a little bit of a hiatus, and then I'll come back when I'm done with going on vacation. So I got a vacation coming up. See, I got my vacation hair going on. But anyway, I want to welcome everybody for coming in. This is this is part 6. So if you're interested in parts 1 through 5, you can go to the show notes. And then that will click on those links, and that will direct you to parts 1 through 5. And this is part 6. So I welcome everybody. We are learning how to treat each other with dignity. We are learning the foundation to making sure that we carry ourselves in congruence with our values. And how we do that is to carry ourselves in a way that is adult-like. So, and not be triggered by things that hold us back and gets us off our course, off our path to portray to the world all of the things that we know we are and we want to portray to the people that we love, to the world, right? So this is the formula on how to do that. How do we behave with each other? How do we behave with each other when they say something that bothers us? How do we interact with somebody when we have a complaint? Last week, I talked about complaints, listening to complaints, being able to articulate complaints about someone who's very close to you. Listening to complaints without being defensiveness is the number one key to being an adult in relationships. So if you are in a relationship, a romantic partner, and that person comes to you and says, hey, I want to talk to you about something that bothered me, participate in the 5 keys to mindful loving, and you will find that on the other end of that complaint is an opportunity for you and that other person to be close to each other and to have a high level of intimacy. So complaint should be synonymous with reaching out and having someone be close to you, is when you listen to their concerns without being defensive and really being empathetic. It doesn't mean you have to agree, but it's really being heard. And for many of us, just being heard is half the problem, right? Not being heard, talking to someone and feeling like you're not getting anywhere with that person, that creates distance. So also what we talked about last week were practices, things that we can do every day in our lives that can help us live a way that's mindful. What do I mean by mindful? Mindful living means if someone does something that bothers you, instead of being reactive to that, you can stop, pay attention to how your body's feeling, pay attention to what's coming up for you, and just pay attention to, okay, this is bothering me. What is this reminiscent of in my past that is making me upset? So mindfulness is just being aware of your reactions, being understanding instead of reacting. It's filtering. Some people just, as soon as they get bothered, it goes from the gut out of their mouth. And so when you participate like that, sometimes you do and you say things that you normally wouldn't have done. That's not really who and what you really are, because I think all of us can behave in the way where it's respectable. So anyway, we're going to continue on with practices. And we are starting on page, what page is that? 50, looks like 51. We're starting on page 50. So all of us who are here, we are starting on page 50 and we are having a conversation. Let me turn my light up a little bit. We are having a conversation about practices on things that you can do to help you become an adult in relationships. Okay, so we ended with the practice of, last week we ended with 3 forms of listening. It's only our presence is enough to create trust and open a path to contentment. And they say in mindfulness, we can learn to listen to others as we listen to songbirds. Isn't that something? Songbirds, no judgment, no appreciation, only appreciation of diversity. So, not judging, appreciation of diversity. Y'all know what that means? Appreciating diversity is understanding that not everybody thinks the same way you do. So a great way to listen is to be able to understand that that person's world is different from yours and it's okay. So being tolerant of differences, that's what they mean, appreciation of diversity. Then our loving the birds, as St. Francis did, adds to the heart dimension. So all the different bird sounds we can appreciate, all the different perspectives that people have we can appreciate, and it doesn't have to be a personal attack against you just because someone thinks different from you. So that's where we ended last time, as a practice that we can do to make sure that we maintain maintain who we are and our sense of purpose and how we interact with others. Not enough discussion centers around this, by the way, from what I'm getting in contact with. So before I go on, I want to say hello. I see you, Willie. Willie, hello, Willie from Detroit. Hey, Detroit, wonderful. Love Detroit. Kanika Lemon, hello. And Sir D and Kenyatta Ramsey. Hey, Kenyatta. For some reason, that name sounds familiar. I think I've seen you in the chat before. I want to say hello to everybody. We are starting on page 50, and we're going to go all the way to the end of chapter 1. I can't believe we've done so many parts of this book, and we're only finishing chapter 1. So anyway, to get through it, just to remind everybody, the 5 A's, 5 keys to mindful loving. What is that? That is attention. That means paying attention to someone, giving them your undivided attention with no phones and no distractions, right? Acceptance means universally accepting someone and what they're saying. You should not have to beg for acceptance, right? Can you imagine if we lived in a world where you are just accepted for who and what you are? You don't need to act out. You don't need to beg for someone to pay attention to you and to accept you. You don't even need to have to participate. Like, a lot of women feel like in order for them to be accepted, they have to look a certain way. So just think with the cosmetic surgery that a lot of women get. Can you imagine if you just accepted somebody, if people felt accepted for who and what they really are? The cosmetic surgery industry would probably collapse, right? My light just turned on. Would probably collapse because there's so many people that feel like they have to look a certain way and be a certain way in order to be accepted. Okay, acceptance. So you shouldn't have to work for it. It should be inherent in just being a human being, right? The other thing is appreciation, being able to appreciate other people and their gifts and demonstrating appreciation. Affection, definitely touching and affection is so important in relationships. And allowing people to be their own individual selves, right? That's important. It's interesting because you hear this talk about in order to be in a relationship, you have to know who you are first, right? Well, to know who you are first, you really have to be allowed. You have to have grown up, particularly in those teenage years, where when you when you rebel, which is normal to rebel, that you were in a situation where you were allowed to be unique, right? And not felt shamed ashamed to be unique. And when you're allowed to be your unique person and develop into who you really are, when you get in a relationship, you tend to maintain your sense of self. You don't get lost in who you are. So it's so important to be allowed to be your own individual self so that you can figure out exactly who and what you are and try on different hats. And some things don't work, some things do work. Okay. All right. So we are starting on page 50. And by the way, before I get started, let me say one thing. If you type love, LOVE, to 87948, you will receive a text message from me. I'll give you free stuff. I think my husband has a book called Financial Lovemaking. He will send you his book and you'll get some really interesting information from me. So text love to 87948. All righty. And then we'll go back to Coaching with Dr. Alicia. Okay, so let me do that. We are on page 50. Attending to needs. Using the 5 A's as guidepost, the 5 A's, attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowance. Okay. Ask yourself what you need most from a partner or friend. Ask your partner or friend what he or she needs from you. Be careful not to confuse needs with requests, plans, or remedies. For example, to say, I need you to listen, describes not a need, but a request, right? So you can say, I need you to listen, right? You can say, I need more space in this relationship does not describe a need, but a plan. To say, I need a drink describes not a need, but a remedy, right? Tell your partner your present desires, plans, and ideals for remedies. Then identify the need behind each of these and ask them to hear it. For instance, behind the desire to be listened, you may lie the need for authentic attentiveness, an undistracted focus on your words and feelings with respect and sincere appreciation. So that's great to come to that point. And these are needs that everybody has. I really need someone to sit down and really hear what I'm saying and what I'm going through and everything that I'm talking about, right? So all of us have this sense, this need, okay? Attending to your own needs. Feeling loved. Begin this exercise by recalling memories of feeling loved in childhood and notice any connection to the kinds of love you seek as adults. Then ask your partner what feels like love to them and share what it feels like to you. What does love feel like to you? You can say you love somebody, but if to show that you love somebody, you have to really understand how that person needs to be loved, right? You may not feel loved by someone who truly loves you because she knows it, because she shows it in ways you don't understand as love. This is like hearing a foreign language and presuming it's gibberish. Ask for a translation. The challenge of intimacy for adults is to expand our original concept of love to accommodate a partner's unique way of loving. We can still ask for what we want while trying to accept an approximation of it and opening ourselves to new versions of love. I just really love some of this information because all of us have our own love language. When they get into love language, you can have a conversation. You know, you can say, what is it when you were younger that your parents did that really made you feel loved? What is it? And for some people, it could be acts of service. For some people, it could be quality time. It could be gifts. And it doesn't have to be big gifts. It could be little gifts. It can be gifts. And you can check in with your partner to say, I really do love you, but I want to make sure that you know this for sure, right? What can I do today to make you feel loved? And I actually recommend a lot of the therapy clients that I meet with, especially couples, I recommend that they ask each other this, or they text each other a request every day. What's one thing I can do for you today to make you feel loved? That's something that I think is really important to do. And that when your partner does these things for you, is so important to show a lot of gratitude and appreciation. And, I think that, like, when we select romantic partners, some of this is unconscious. Like, we unconsciously seek somebody who aligns with the mental image that's shaped by early experiences with caregivers. And it's not a conscious thing that we do. So I think this process is influenced by this sort of unconscious attempt to get from your partner what may be lacking when you were little. So for many people, your current partner is a psychological replacement for those childhood caregivers. And they embody traits and characteristics that are similar to your early life. In some ways, it could be similar to what you feel like you didn't get. So I think it's so important to talk about with your partner when you're vulnerable, what you wish you could have had more of when you were little that you didn't get. You can get it from your current partner, right? And I think this phenomenon can lead to individuals that recreate patterns, right? Relational patterns that's reminiscent of when you were growing up. So you can seek comfort or familiarity in the dynamics, and they play out in what you've experienced growing up. So whether they were nurturing or problematic, it's important to kind of understand this aspect of partner selection, because it can shed light on the complexities of a romantic relationship. And I think that that's the reason why a romantic relationship, it's above and beyond any other relationship that you have, not a work relationship. So sometimes I hear people equate a work relationship, like the relationship you have with your boss, with a relationship that you have with your partner. The relationship you have with your partner is a whole nother can of worms than the relationship you have with your boss. It can be similar, but it's a totally different dynamic, and I don't think it should be compared in any way. So anyway, let's move on. Page 50. Consider these questions. And so the author of How to Be Adult in Relationship, he recommends keeping a journal. I have never really been good at keeping journals, but he recommends journaling. He says that consider these questions in a journal. What feels like love to me? Who makes me feel that way? Do I feel loved in bodily resonant ways by my partner? Who was the first person in my life to make me feel loved? Who was it? Who was that first person? Have I thanked them enough? Have I shown appreciation for this? Can I tell my partner what feels like love to me? Can I ask her or him the same question? What will I do with this information? Is the love I offer childlike, parental, or adult? I think I can be very parental. I tend to be very nurturing in a motherly sense. So I can understand that question. What will I do with this information? When we feel little or no love coming our way, we may look for proof of love. The more proof we seek, the more our partner feels threatened, tested, and felt like they're on the spot. And it's a very difficult situation to be in those situations. Am I either of these positions? Yeah, I think this is really interesting. I think a lot of this is unconscious. And for many of us, it's very difficult to answer these questions, right? Because it's just tough, right? to answer these questions. And I think that sometimes when the dynamics of relationships kind of flesh out, sometimes you do need to go and see a professional person that can help you identify how the unconscious works and give you some insight into your own thoughts, feelings, and behavior. So for a lot of us, when it's difficult to ask that question about what is it that we need to feel loved? What is it that I have the capacity of providing to another person? How open or acceptive am I in seeking out these understandings? I think sometimes therapy can help us tease some of those things out. Okay, so let's move on. They talk about touching. Becoming an adult does not erase or cancel our fundamental needs. We all feel a need to be held at times, no matter what our age. This comes from instinct for personal validation. We are always on the lookout for the mirroring and holding that may have been inadequate or missing in our early life. These are unconscious attempts. You are right now in your current relationship playing out a dynamic, continuing a dynamic that was established when you were younger. So if you're in a relationship and you find that some of your needs are not met and you're bothered by some of these things, take a look at how that represents. Think of the story that comes with that and share that with your partner. I mean, if you have a partner that's receptive of that, hopefully you do, where you can be vulnerable, you can share that with your partner. And I know I talked last week about healthy relationships allow for complaints. And I really do think that when you don't feel comfortable complaining to your partner or asking your partner what you need that you're not getting, I think what happens is that it forms a superficial relationship. I know y'all know online, there's all these pictures of couples and they look all happy and shiny and everything. And that's all fine and dandy, but there's no such thing as a perfect relationship. So when they say this relationship is perfect, we have no problems, we have no issues, I always wonder how realistic that is. It's not realistic to think that you're just going to have a perfect relationship, perfect dynamics, and there's nothing to ever have to work out, right? So I think that authentic relationships where there is going to be true intimacy means that there's open communication about what you need and what you want. And if you express what you need to your partner and your partner is receptive of that, you are more intimate. If you express what you need to your partner and they make you the problem, it creates distance. You can't have a real relationship that's authentic and close and intimate and connected without being able to share. So that's what I wanted to talk about there. When someone loves us, when they care about us and respects us, that person's body becomes a resource for repair of the neglect or abuse in our past. So when you're vulnerable and when you share and that person gives you touch, physical touch, not in a sexual way necessarily, but physical touch, that's when you know you can heal just from touching. Some of us fear, quite reasonably, the letdown of finding closeness and then losing it again. That fear keeps us from wanting to be in a relationship. That fear keeps us from expressing how we really feel to others that we're interested in. That fear of being abandoned, that fear of rejection is really what keeps us from pursuing these relationships. It's like sometimes people sabotage relationships just because they're afraid of what would happen, right? We want to be sure a potential partner deserves our trust. And it's always a gamble. There's always a gamble. People get married and they know there's 50% of marriages don't work, but you get married anyway because you take this leap of faith. There's no guarantee. So you go into the relationship knowing that there's no guarantee. Sometimes that can be frightening for people. And your partner doesn't deserve your trust right away, right? That's why you have to date and get to know that person, because trust, dating somebody with trustworthiness means that they are open in their communication. If you're dating someone and they're not open in their communication, trust may be an issue. That's how you know you can trust somebody. One indication of trust is that person being open. Self-sabotage is a real thing. Yes, Emery, it is. And you're so scared of it. It's so funny how self-sabotage, what it does. You are afraid of this sort of outcome that you know is coming. In your mind, you think this person is eventually going to let me down, and this person can't be trusted, and all of this. I'm just going to do whatever I can to test this relationship, to test this person, to do what I can, knowing dang on well that it's going to potentially cause problems in the relationship, but it's a great way for you to control it, right? Because to really give to somebody and make yourself vulnerable, that's scary. Who wants to do that? And you shouldn't. I mean, we've all heard horror stories of women in particular who trusted men and they never should have, you know? So trust is something that needs to be earned. There are indicators of trustworthiness. And one of the indicators is being open in your communication. Another indicator is asking them about relationships in the past. Great way to predict the future is to ask people tell me about your past relationships. That lets you know. So there's other sorts of things. So yeah, self-sabotage is a way of, you don't trust yourself. You don't even trust yourself in knowing who to trust, right? A real thing here. It is a gamble, right? So it's nerve-wracking. If we can get past the inhibiting fear, we may open ourselves to the touch of others, however limited, and find it holds a healing power. Being held with tender attention, for example, in someone's lap, side by side, with arms around each other, supplies the mirroring love that may have been missing in our childhood. Didn't get enough hugs, right? It feels embarrassing only at first. Once the ice is broken, it feels natural. To try this kind of holding, sometimes with your partner or a close friend, may offer to hold a partner on your lap or cuddle side by side, read a book, read a part of this book to find to him or her. We do not outgrow the need for such comfort forms of childhood closeness. And there is no shame in that. No shame in that. I think a lot of us get on board with that. And let me see, what did I put? Superficial relationships can't do this. Okay. So external harmony, right, means that you can't bring up an issue. So yeah, I made that note in the side because really being held, really being tender, and really healing with each other is part of that is physical touch, not sexual necessarily, but it's just the physical touch of just engulfing someone in hugs, right? Shoot, I was looking online and there are actual physical professional cuddlers. They're actually people, all they do is cuddle professionally. And I think, that sort of industry exploded during COVID. Professional cuddlers, that's a thing. But anyway, there's no shame in this. So, hey, everybody, how y'all feeling? Y'all need a hug? I wish I was physically with you, give you a hug. So, hello, David. Let me see. David is from Mississippi. Hey, David from Mississippi. Thanks for tuning in. Emery, getting emotional needs. Okay, getting emotional needs met that never got met during childhood. Yeah, listen, your past, no matter what failures or whatever happened to you in the past, it doesn't have to dictate your future. You can decide what type of life you want to have, what type of relationship you want to have. And if there's some problematic issues in the past, you can heal just from current relationships. That holding space that I'm talking about today is how you heal. And it's not my opinion. This is data. I've seen it happen. And I have anecdotes. I've seen it happen. So, and I'm not by myself because David Richo sees it too. So for everybody who's just tuning in, we are reading How to Be an Adult in Relationships, the 5 Keys to Mindful Loving. And this is the Bible on how to treat people in a way where you feel good about yourself. I'm distracted by noises. Okay. So offering support. Emotional support means a generous giving of the 5 A's. What's the 5 A's? Attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowance. Okay. Yet, how do we know exactly what kind of support our partner needs in a given moment or situation? You got to ask them. You can't read. I am working on how to be clairvoyant. I read a book. Hey, babe. I read a book on how to be clairvoyant, but I'm trying, but I can't. I can't read your mind. You have to tell me. For instance, our partner is weeping. Will it help me to hold them? Will it help to give them space? You have to ask. I see you're upset right now. What is it that you need from me? Really simple, right? The Little Prince acknowledged, it's such a secret place, the land of tears. There is sometimes unreachable, unnamed feeling in a person's experience. She herself does not know what she really feels or needs in the moment. Support may consist simply in honoring that inner mystery. I like that because if somebody comes to you and they're really upset about something, this reminds us not to give answers, not to fix it, but just being there with them. This is difficult. This is a very difficult situation you're in. And not offering, just honoring that conflict without trying to fix it, because fixing that inner conflict for someone else is really telling them what you're feeling right now is uncomfortable for me. So I want you not to feel this way so that I can be comfortable, right? So I think we have to just be aware of this, that sometimes we don't need to fix it. We may not find out how to help. Then, like Hamlet, we can only say, sit still, my soul. Right, just sitting in this. Not answers. You know, I've been doing some talks, podcasts, YouTube videos on 2 areas where I've been talking on Fly Nubian Money. I don't know if y'all tune in to Fly Nubian Money, but a certain couple of days out of the week, I will come on and they look to me as a therapist, right? to weigh in on all of these issues that we are all going through. And I think the 2 of the things that I've been asked to comment on is this political race, right? We got Donald Trump and we have Joe Biden dropping out of the race. We have Kamala Harris stepping up as vice president to run for president. And it's all of these ideas and thoughts about it. And a lot of people feel overwhelmed. And they're like, Dr. Alicia, what do you say about this? The thing is that we can't control. I mean, all we can do is vote. If we feel like we want to vote for whomever we feel like we want to vote for. But outside of that, unless you want to join a campaign, in our day-to-day experience, we can't control what happens. We can't control what the president does, not in a direct way. All we can do, if we feel so compassionate about it, is to vote. But the rest of that, I've made my opinion very clear. I'm going to cast my vote and I'm going to sit somewhere and I'm going to watch a movie and go to sleep. I'm not even going to weigh in on the circus, right? Because these are things that are happening in our lives that we can't control. And we need to understand that and not get wrapped up into this. Also, we also have a fatal shooting. Just recently, there was a young lady in Illinois who was fatally shot for no reason at all, right? She's calling the police and she's asking the police to come because she feels threatened by not the police, but by someone else, right? She feels threatened. And she's calling the police and asking them for help. And they say, okay, let me see your driver's license. She's like, yes, I'll give you my driver's license. And we all know how that scenario played out. She goes into the kitchen because they told her to go in the kitchen. She goes in there. There's a boiling pot of water. It looks like she put the water in the sink. And then this senseless murder happens in front of our eyes. Yes, it has a toll on us, but there's some things, the inner mystery, the not being able to fix it. We can't fix some of these issues as a particular person. We cannot fix some of these issues. So I think sometimes we just have to sit with our pain and compassion that we see when we see these things, right? When we have this political election happening, there's only so much you can do, and the helplessness of it and all the things that we feel about it. We for sure need safe spaces to vent and to talk about all of the things that we can't control, right? You can only control what you do, essentially. You can't control anyone else. So, but there's all of these complexities and these social issues that are actually totally out of our control. So we need to really, more than ever, come up with ways and avenues and people in our life that we can talk to, that we can share our frustrations with and know that we can't fix it. Anyway, I just want to say that part. There is no, and people are asking me, what do we do about this? And all I can say is that self-care, get into your own self-care, love yourself, right? And be a beacon of love for the people around you. But in terms of fixing some of these systemic issues with the Justice Department and the police departments and politics, it's out of our control. Anyway, I'm done with that. We'll move on. Okay. At other times, sensitivity may take the form of inquiry. When your partner seems distressed and willing to communicate, practice asking her what kind of help you need. What is it that you would want from me to help you with? This is difficult, right? There is a way of honoring and encouraging her comfortableness in asking for support from you. Another contribution to intimacy, what we say, how we say it, right? So they're telling you what you need to say to your partner when they're distressed and they need support from you. Ask them what they need from you. Here are some examples of how to ask. So they're telling you exactly what to say in case you're grasping for words. I see your pain. Please tell me how I can be here for you now. I want to support you in this moment. Please let me know what will work best for you. I am available in any way I can be. How can I nurture you the best during this time? If you do not know what you need right now, I can simply just be here for you. That is easy. Any of us can do. So I like this on page 52. They're letting you know if you don't know what to say and you don't know how to talk to somebody when they're in distress or when they're upset, we're just going to give you the script. Practice this script. Practice the script. Anyway, all you all who are here, thank you for being here. We are reading this book, How to Be an Adult in Relationships by David Richo. David Richo is a therapist like me, and I'm jealous because he came out with this wonderful book some 20 some odd years ago before I could come out with it. Oh gosh, I have feelings of jealousy because this is spot on. And this is what we as Black people need to be taking on and treating each other this way. For real, y'all, we need this. Okay. So he ends chapter 1 by saying, noticing mindsets. Loving presence takes 5 forms: attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowing. And mindfulness is the path to such loving presence. You have to practice mindfulness every single day. It is not going to naturally come to you. Practice it every day. mindfulness. And we're all busy because I'm very busy, but I practice it in the shower. I practice it at night before I go to bed. I turn everything off and I practice mindfulness. I just embed it into my day-to-day life, moments of mindful practices. And if you want to know exactly what to do, I think it's part 4 and 5 talks about it. So if you want to know specifically, mindful contact is unconditional in granting the 5 A's and unconditional by the mindsets of ego, such as fear, demand, expectation, judgment, or control. You need to be aware of how you are doing this, right? Look at the chart. He has a chart, and he's again encouraging you to journal. Examples of how you find yourself on both sides in your way of relating to a partner. Show your results to your partner and ask for feedback in making changes for a compassionate response. Right. So I like this. Setting aside time to talk to your partner about what is it that I can do to make you feel loved? And I guarantee you it's probably not going to be buy me this, buy me that, do this for me, do that for that. And I bet you it will be something along the lines of attention, acceptance, allowing. It's going to be something along those lines. I guarantee you. Well, in my office, very rarely do I find a man or a couple, individuals in a relationship, when they ask each other that question in my office, very rarely do I find any materialistic requests. Typically, it's like, hold my hand, give me a hug, tell me you love me. Let's go walk in the park together. That's what I normally get. I'm telling you. Okay. The 5 A's, right? Based on mindfulness and their opposites. So he is saying, if you are participating in these things, it's the ego. It's not mindfulness. So being attentive, what gets in the way with us being attentive? Ignoring. That's the opposite of attentive. Refusing to listen. When someone's not listening, they're not being attentive. Being unavailable and fearing the truth. Yes. So when you're giving someone attention and you're listening to them complain about you, I'm asking you to hear this as a beautiful way to connect. But for many of us, we take it personal and we get mad and upset and we want to defend ourselves and we are scared by what people tell us, right? We're scared if we say, how do you want me to love you? What is it that you want for me to do differently than what I'm doing, right? And usually when you hear that, it can be frightening because you're hearing things that sometimes can be difficult to hear. Okay. The next part of the 5 A's is being accepting. What gets in the way of being accepting? The opposite of that. Trying to make someone over to fit our specifications, desires, or fantasies. Don't make me over. Y'all remember that song? Don't make me over. I like that song. Anyway, that is it. Trying to change another person instead of accepting them. Trying to make somebody fit a certain specification, desire, or a certain fantasy, right? Making them change who they are fundamentally. That is the opposite of accepting, rejecting, right? The other part, being appreciative. That's part of the 5 A's. What gets in the way with being appreciative? Criticizing somebody. Now, the difference between complaining and criticizing, what's the difference, y'all? There is a difference. Criticizing is when you're calling somebody a name, when you're making them feel less than, when you are approaching them in a way with contempt. Criticizing someone is putting them down, saying, what's wrong with you? That's not the same as complaining. Complaining is using what I call I statements. I need this from you. I noticed we had this experience and I felt rejected, or you can talk about how you feel, what you noticed, and what you would like. That's a complaint. Criticism is just raising your voice, yelling at them, putting them down. That's the difference between criticism and showing appreciation, and also complaining, because complaints are great in relationships. You want to be open for a complaint, but it has to be done in a way that's constructive, right? Okay, being affectionate. Gets in the way of affection? Acting selfish. Being abusive. I mean, physical harm on someone is unacceptable. Matter of fact, physical harm is illegal. So, you can go to jail for touching someone out of anger, hitting someone out of anger. So, of course, that's the opposite of being affectionate. And allowing. What gets in the way of allowing? Being controlled, being demanding, or manipulative, trying to get something out of somebody, trying to not say what you mean and mean what you say, really not following through with things, being manipulative. Those are the things that gets in the way of just allowing somebody to be unique and allowing that person to be who and what they are. You're trying to manipulate them into being someone else. That's very toxic. So I just want to say the 5 A's is an example of healthy loving, right? So based on mindfulness, being attentive is healthy. What's toxic is ignoring somebody, refusing to listen to them, being unavailable, and fearing the truth. That's a toxic behavior. What's a healthy behavior is being acceptance. What's toxic? Trying to make someone change, trying to make them over. Being appreciative, that's healthy. Criticizing someone is toxic. Being affectionate is healthy, right? In relationships. Acting selfishly, physical abuse is definitely very toxic and harmful and illegal. So let's look at it that way. Allowing, that's healthy. Being controlling and demanding or manipulative, that's toxic. So, he wants you to journal this. He wants you to journal all the different ways in which you have done some of these things in your life, and what are ways in which you can change it. And he's saying you can make the changes for a compassionate response to your partner. You can do it. Hey, everybody. Oh, look at everybody in here. Hello, everyone. How you doing? I'm Dr. Alicia, coaching with Dr. Alicia. This is my book club on Sunday. We're going to finish chapter 1 of How to Be an Adult in Relationships, the 5 Keys to Mindful Loving, which I just went over. We are finishing chapter 1. We are on page 52. You can get this book. There's an audio book version. There is a Kindle version. And then, of course, there's paper book. I'm old school, y'all. I like paper copies. I like writing in the margins. I just enjoy doing that. To me, I don't know. I just like it. Hi, Maya. Thank you, Maya. How you doing? Okay. The last part of chapter 1 is heavy. He says spiritual commitment to the 5 A's. So what is he saying? He's saying that participating in mindfulness by being attentive, accepting, appreciative, affection, and allowing. This is not only a mindful practice, but it is spiritual as well. So that means that to participate in these behaviors means you are calling on a spiritual part of yourself. Higher is bigger than you. Wow, that's amazing. Bigger than you. The 5 A's are purposes or ends in themselves. Giving and receiving them are not only the ways we are fulfilled, but also the spiritual practices by which we fulfill our heroic destiny of bringing the world the benefits and treasures we find in our path. Viewed in spiritual terms, they can be explained like this. Attention means consciousness of the interconnectedness of all things. When you pay attention to someone, put your phone down and really listening, then you are honoring the interconnectedness of all things. You know that not paying attention in this situation is creating on an energetic level is creating a collective means, not paying attention, not listening. We don't do enough listening with each other. You're creating that frequency in your life by not listening, right? Acceptance means affirming an unconditional yes to the sobering givens of existence, the facts of life. Means we're accepting things that come our way. Appreciation means the attitude of gratitude, being appreciative of all the gifts, right? Affection means the love we feel for others and for the universe. Wow. As above, so below, right? I think that's what that means. Allowing means that we grant to others and protect in ourselves the right to live freely without outside control. You're creating this in your life because I think what he's saying is that there's a collective consciousness in how we treat each other. And that on an energetic and a spiritual level, we are carrying out not only healthy relationships, but health in terms of how we relate to the world. We're adding to this collective consciousness of providing peace in this world. Wow, that's amazing. Turn these 5 needs and purposes into affirmations and commitments, which you can then repeat daily or more often if possible. Use the following examples. So he's telling you, incorporate this into your life. I feel unity with all human beings and with nature. I notice their pain and their joy. I make decisions that make me feel more connected and closer to them. I accept the givings of existence, both those that seem positive and those that seem negative. I accept the givings. I surrender to what cannot be changed and trust it to be useful on my own life's path. There is never a negative. Never anything negative, never anything. You just say that wasn't the right move for me. I'm not going to interpret it as a failure, as negative. I'm supposed to go in a different direction. So you just have to tell yourself, this is the universe telling me to go in a different direction. I hear it. I'm going to listen and I hear it. I'm going to go in another direction. I am thankful for all that has been and open to all that will be. I show appreciation for everything I receive. I do think we need to show appreciation to our partners more. Any little thing that they do, we need to say, thank you so much. Show appreciation because it is bigger than you. Appreciation permeates out of you, right? I show my love in my every thought, word, and action. I cherish my right to live in accord with my own deepest needs, values, and wishes. I respect that right in others. Yes. So it's so interesting in my healing. I have a Healing Haven course. I have a whole entire module just on that. I have my students create their own manifesto on how they want to live their lives. And in that, it really takes mindfulness practices in order to achieve whatever you want in your life, right? But what happens is that when we get triggered, we behave and we act in a way out of fear or mistrust or whatever happens to us in that moment that we're triggered, and we start behaving and acting outside of what we have already said we want to become. So it makes you not only distance yourself from the people who you really want to be close to, but it also makes you become somebody that you know you're not. It makes you become a person that, I want to say childish, but it's not in a way. It makes you become a person that is not honoring your purpose and your conviction and your values and what you put forth. So students, put together a statement about who and what they want to become, what their purpose is in life, and we prepare for what are your triggers. Identify what your triggers are and start thinking about how to become relaxed, how to become mindful when you are in the face of these triggers, how to become mindful in your actions so that you still stand on what you know to be true, what you know you want to become, what you want to be, your goals, your values. There's no sense of stepping outside of that. Okay, so that's what we do in my class. And I was really interested that he in this book is bringing this up. And let me tell you, everybody, we are done. That is chapter 1. Only chapter 1. And so the next time I come on here, which will be probably next month sometime, because I'm going out of town. But the next time I come on here, we're going to start chapter 2. Chapter 2 of how to be adult in relationships. I thank you, everybody, for joining. I would love for you to go to the show notes. You can, while I'm on a hiatus, go back through in the show notes. There's links to part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is part 6. You can go in the show notes and you can refresh yourself. We are reading this book, How to Be an Adult in Relationships. And I thank you all for joining me. Happy Sunday. And one thing before I leave, I just want to say I'd like for you all to text LOVE, LOVE, to 87948. You get information from me, exclusive to me, text right to your phone. You'll also get information from my husband too about relationships. And he knows about relationships. So anyway, thank you, everybody. Goodbye.